Today on Guardian Answers, we're going to talk about the different types of car keys. All right, thanks for joining us on another video today. So today we're talking about all the different types of car keys. We'll go back probably to the old single-sided keys, to the VATS, PATS systems, the PROC systems now, the high security keys, the double-sided keys, the single-sided keys. So there's a lot of different innovation that's happened over the last 30 years or however long it's been now, 40 years maybe. So there's all different types of automotive car keys. Now, most of the time you go to a locksmith or a dealership, they'll do all the legwork for you and research it all for you. But just so you have some understanding, we'll go ahead and break it down today. I'm going to talk with Paul over here in a minute, and we'll talk about some of the older technologies of chip keys and how they are today and maybe where they're going in the future. All right, so for those who don't know, this is Paul Roan. He's been in the industry, 40 years?
Close to 40.
Close to 40 years. I've been in the industry about 16 years, somewhere in there. When I came in the industry, it was in January 2007. So at that point, I believe the first type of car key we're going to talk about is VATS system. I believe that was already being phased out when I came in 2007 because it wasn't something that I dealt with. But anyway, we're talking about the different type of car keys. So if we go back to, I guess, as early as the 80s, you have your first kind of car key, which is just a single-sided car key, just like a house key. This cuts on one side on the top. And then it's kind of progressed since then. It's kind of went into a VATS system, then PATS system, and then a different type of PATS system, to high security keys, to PROX keys, to all kinds of different stuff. So let's go back to we don't need to talk really about the single-sided keys because that's just your basic first car key. It's just like a house key pretty much. But on the VATS system, which was the very first chip system, kind of say, I guess, what you call a chip system. From what I understood, if you see the key, there's like a little resistor on it, and those resistors have values, and you know a little bit more about that.
Well, the values were just given as values from 1 through 15. They had actually a double-sided key and a single-sided key, 15 of each with a value from 1 to 15. And the value the key had to be cut to match the cylinder in the car, and then the value of the chip or the resistor had to be such that it matched whatever the computer was looking for in that resistance. And the combination of the two, the cut of the key and the value of the resistor, gave them a wide range of keys that they could develop. It expanded the amount of keys that they could cut, and it also gave them some protection in terms of high security.
Right.
Now, one of the problems they had, and it wasn't a problem that happened often, but it was kind of comical in a way, the darn chip would fall out.
Oh, off the key?
Yeah, the little resistor would fall out, and we'd have people come through all the time, my key doesn't work anymore, and look at it and say, well, because your resistor is gone.
Right.
There's a little hole in your key now, and it shouldn't be there.
They're so old, actually, I don't even have any. I never actually ever had them in the store.
It's a system that even when I was left where I left before, and we had a bunch of them, and we were cutting probably 3 or 4 a year.
Yeah, it's not much.
It just wasn't. But there was a time when you were cutting them every day.
Right, and you can take a multimeter to the resistor probably and measure the resistance, the ohm reader probably. I would imagine.
I believe you could. Most shops had a machine, just a piece of machinery that could insert the key and read it, because you not only had to read the key you were cutting, you had to read the customer's key.
Right.
And then of course you had to match it.
And the benefit of that was, instead of just having the cuts and being able to duplicate the key, then you also had to have the matching cuts and the matching resistor to start the car, which adds extra security.
Now, it created a problem if someone lost their key entirely and you had to start over from scratch and develop a key, because what they called interrogate. You had to interrogate the vehicle. And the problem was you had to interrogate the vehicle with every single value until you found the right value.
Right.
So if you started at 1 and they had a 15, you had to go through every single key one at a time and interrogate the car before you could get a key that would fit it. And the problem with that was it was about a 15-minute process for each interrogation.
Oh, each one.
You could be sitting there for a couple of hours
Oh man.
working on their car, trying to figure out what
Mhm.
key they had. If if you didn't just get lucky and find the resistor that they had the first time out, or maybe within the first 3 or 4 tries.
It's kind of like the original, was it Ford tryout keys they used to have? We all had to try each key. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, the tryout keys were, that was a little different, but yeah, similar. But of
That's
course,
all before my time, so I'm very my
the
knowledge on it's
tryout
very
keys
limited.
was just a physical thing.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, it was kind of interesting. I used to work at a Ford auction house,
Mhm.
and I would go down there, and everything I worked on was Ford, and it was a 10-cut system at that time. And I actually developed a set of my own tryout keys
Mhm.
because all they wanted me to do was make a key for the ignition. So what I did is I'd pull the switches with my tryout keys, and then I would grab a switch that I had pulled previously and rebuild
Oh,
it
there you go.
and just stick it in there. And I had a box of switches that were ready to go, so I'd pull one, stick one in, pull one, stick one in. I made a fortune doing that because I worked very fast and I got paid a lot, quite a bit
Mhm.
per each car. So there's ways, it's just it points to the fact that there's ways in this industry to do things
Mhm.
without having to work too hard if you work smart.
Right, right.
Anyway,
Well, then after, I guess, so that was the single sided, then the VATS, and then after the VATS, I came in probably around this time where the PATS was, which is so VATS is, what was it, vehicle anti-theft system, that's right, and PATS was passive anti-theft system.
yeah, the VATS was a GM system.
Mhm.
PATS was a Ford system.
Gotcha. And then everybody's adopted the
But
PATS,
other
right?
people developed.
Yeah,
Yeah, other people. It started out on the Ford, but other people picked it up, and it changed over the years. But yeah.
Right. And then on the PATS, I guess the very first chips. So the PATS system would have the chip embedded in the head, which is similar to what it is now,
Mhm.
but it was a glass tube, right?
Well, some of the first chips they started out with a little glass tube.
Right. And then if you drop your key hard or something to break that tube, and then it wouldn't work.
It's possible.
Occasionally, I had that happen. I've had that happen.
Possible. And sometimes they put them in. They would actually leave. They would have an opening where you inserted the key or inserted the chip into the key,
Mhm.
and then you would close it with a plug, and the plug might fall out.
Right. If you look close on the keys, you can see the little plugs there
Still
too.
see
Yeah,
it.
you can see them.
Still see it.
And then after the glass chip, they've kind of moved more now to, I guess it's like a ceramic, almost kind of a chip that's inside of the keys.
Yeah, I think they've enclosed them in a ceramic coating, tough as nails now. You'd have to hit them with a hammer to break them.
Right. And then after that, so just like a normal automotive key where it's double-sided, then they started developing the people call it Sidewinder or
Yeah, high security key.
yeah, it's just basically instead of cutting on a standard machine where the blade's spinning and hitting the top of the key, and then you flip it over and cut the other side, you have a key like this, and it puts a groove into it or a pattern into it, and then you flip it over and do the same. So it cuts with a spinning, like almost like a Dremel bit, and it rides in versus the spinning wheel hitting the side of the key. So the high security, so at that point, you're creating a lock that's not as easily picked. So that's why I'm assuming they went to the Sidewinder stuff. And then now they're kind of into the procs where you can just put your key in the vehicle, hit a start button, and it starts because it's reading it. It's in the vicinity of it, proximity of the vehicle. And then some are combination procs with still the manual key insert inside of the remote because sometimes power's out or whatever, and you need to override it. So there's a manual key in there. So I don't think the manual key is ever going to necessarily go away. It could. I mean, some of the Teslas are using their phones to start cars with.
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, if all the electronics fail, you need some kind of fail-safe system, and that would be the manual key.
Right.
I mean, that's hard to fail.
Right.
So, I think probably at some point it would always be around, or it's in some form it would always be around. Now, something that people might want to know about regarding these high security keys, the ones that are milled,
Mm-hmm.
not cut on the end, but rather milled down the middle, that kind of thing. If you have a Honda, if you have a certain Toyotas, they have a tendency over time to wear out the pins and the wafers inside the lock, just by virtue of the way these keys are made and the way the wafers are made. And so if you're having a problem with a lock and it's an older vehicle, especially if it's a high security key, don't necessarily blame the key. I mean, it could be the key, but it could be a combination of key and switch. So always be prepared to take a look at, if you go to your locksmith or go to your professional and they talk about you may have a switch issue, believe them. They're not trying to sell you something that you don't need. They're telling you may have a problem, and it could get bad to the point where the key can actually get stuck in the lock and not want to come out.
Right.
So it's not a common problem, but it's just something probably to be aware of if you own one of those type of cars, and especially if it's an older one, 10 years old or older.
Okay, so I guess to wrap this all up, let's go back to the original single-sided automotive keys, which is like the early 90 Fords and stuff like that. And then takes you to the VAT system. Then there was the PAT system with the glass chip. Then there's more of a ceramic chip now in the PAT system. That system's still in use. And now there's also proximity and high security keys and regular double-sided keys. And then I guess for the future, I haven't seen anything. Actually, I have seen some cool things. One is, the Tesla, for one, they use cell phones to start the car. They can use a cell phone or an app or something to start their phone. I've also saw something by, X-Horse, the brand that we use on our high security duplicators and things like that. They have it watch. And the watch can do, I think it starts your car or it programs something. It's something I haven't looked into it much, but who knows where the technology is going. But anyway, hopefully this video was educational. Hopefully it shed some light on, a topic that's not really discussed very much. That's why I pulled kind of to the older stuff for Paul, because that stuff was kind of before my time. So, but thanks for tuning in as always. We appreciate the support. We're on all the social media platforms, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have 2 other YouTube channels as well, Udropreneur and Guardian Approved, and we appreciate the support as always.